Hello there, I'm Andy Gillion and I am the composer and lead guitar player for the band Mors Principium Est, and I thought it would be a really cool idea to make a video series diving into the original projects of a few songs from the new album 7 and just take you through from the inside how I arranged, composed and put together these songs. You can have a look at the actual Cubase project itself and the ins and outs and all the orchestrations and the synths and the bass and the guitars and everything else and all that fun stuff. So I figured we'd open up the old projects, dive in, have a look around together, discuss the decisions I made. It's not much of a discussion. I'm just sort of telling you what I did. It's not a live thing, so your input is very limited in that sense. But I thought we'd have a look around. Let's open her up. Let's have a look. So here is the original folder, MPE Album 7. And I created that on the 4th of November 2017, so I was slogging away at this for a few years. And inside there we've got all the goodies. A lot of stuff in here didn't make it, obviously, so there's tons of cool stuff going on in here. And this is the one we're going to talk about today, A Day for Redemption, which was originally called Album Intro Idea 02-12-2018, because I guess I started this on the 2nd of December 2018. So before I even start diving into this, I had an idea from way back that I wanted to start the album with a sound effect of some kind where people would hear it, maybe if we were going to walk on stage to this intro. Because remember, I wrote this as an intro originally. Why are you being a prick? But I kind of felt like people skip intros, you know? And I really wanted it to just be one full song, this sound effect at the start of the album where people would hear it and go, whoa, what's that? I know that song, I know that album. And I just wanted that. And I also thought it'd be cool to walk on stage to this coming out of the PA. So I went for a patch on Omnisphere called Scorched Mainframe. It's very cool. And it really just sets the tone for the album to come in quite suspenseful. And I think I've got, just a really low note on the piano to accompany that. So it has this ominous beginning. And then of course, the main part. Pretty much the crux of the whole song. Now this, I'm really proud of this melody, and it took a long time to craft. I probably wrote the melody and then just tweaked the notes, so just taking one note at a time, moving it up or down, because one note change will change the entire vibe of the melody. So this guy is actually playing exactly the same as this. It's just 2 bars late. So I play them together like this. It's exactly the same. And what I did was I moved that 2 bars over, so the viola comes in now. It's a counter melody, but it's the same melody, just moved over. And when it starts to clash, that's when I would dive in here and start changing these notes just to make sure it's harmonizing with the original and not clashing, because eventually it would. It's like 2 trains colliding. But come in with some timpani here and a big boom ensemble, apparently, which is, I believe, from Action Strikes. Ooh, yes, that sound effect is still going on pretty much the whole time. And then we bring in some additional strings. We've got some pizzicato here. Nice, just building that tension. Same with this. Very ominous stuff. Choirs come in here. And that is Omnisphere 2 choir there. Heavy vibrato, apparently. And an English combined choir, but I think it's isn't it a chamber? Very nice. Yeah. And then Action Strikes comes in here. Ooh. That is hectic. All right. All together now, and we have some ivory tickling going on here. This is a very typical kind of Mors Principium Est piano motif. things start to get a bit more hectic with the timpani now. And staccato strings, some cellos there, coming in hot. Played in separately, just doing that on the keyboard, and then to get the velocities, but you don't want to just copy paste that, you want to have the velocities different and stack them so it sounds like there's multiple people playing, which is why you've got those 3 lines, but also their octaves, and they sound great. I've got a sub drop here. Oh, I don't remember that being there. Nice, and a reverse cymbal going into that. Yeah, nice. So that's the intro, basically, and I was very proud of it, but I figured that, as I said before, people are just going to skip that. I want this to mean something. I want it to go into a song, and I thought that could be a riff. And then I tried to play that on the guitar and realized, no, it can't be a riff. That's ridiculous. The shapes, the patterns, it doesn't lend itself to guitar very well. It's all over the place. So I thought, well, can I work with it? Can I dip in and out with the guitar and sync up the notes where it's possible to play it and where it's kind of not really feasible to play that on the guitar? I would harmonize and play, as long as I'm playing notes that kind of correlate with it to some extent or harmonize with it to some extent, basically be kind of a counter melody and then dipping in and out of that. And I will just play you the riff on its own. And then I'll play it with the strings. So you can tell that that is definitely playing something slightly different to the strings. But they don't clash. And that was the beauty of this. It took me so long to come up with that riff. And I think I went about it in a similar way to moving these notes sort of one at a time up and down. I was kind of doing the same with my fingers on the guitar until I found something that fit, and I was recording like notes at a time to try and work out how a melody could go with that other melody and not clash. And you can tell here they do sync up. I'm playing the same, yeah, from about bar 40 to 42, I'm playing the same as the strings there. That worked. Slight difference here. That's the same. And I get that na 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 na. And the ending is the same, it all comes back round. So I'll play just the end of the intro going into the big riff. Awesome. I just have to point out there's one thing on the piano that I really wanted to point out here, which I've started to do a lot now. Those big trills. And doubled for good measure. It's quite subtle, I think, on the end mix, but I love it. Cool, and I'll probably just briefly talk about the color scheme going on here. I like to color code it in sections, and that way it's a lot easier to arrange a song. As you can see, all the green parts are this crazy intro and the repeat of which becomes the chorus later on in the song. So you have kind of the intro here, that repeats as a chorus here, repeats as a chorus. Well, actually, let's see what this is, because I'm wondering why that's there. Right. For some reason the solo's green. I don't know why. I was feeling green that day. The solo's green. The reason I do this is because when I'm writing songs for Mors Principium Est, or even for myself, it's very difficult sometimes to tell where you are in a song. You can use markers. I find it visually stimulating to actually see everything color-coded in blocks. So I can say, oh, well, I kind of liked verse 2, and I'm going to have that again. So I grab the blue and I move it. Or if I say I need that chorus, where is it? I'll know it because it's green or it's red. It's different every song. I have this synesthesia thing where I see music in colors as well. So depending on how the section sounds to me, that's how I'll color code it. So more often than not, if it's a really high up lead guitar thing, it'll be in purple or pink even, because that's the way my brain interprets the notes into color. I kind of hear it as a purple or a pink. I think maybe I did it here. You're telling me that doesn't sound purple to you? I mean, that's one of the most purple things I've ever written. I'll get to this section. Let me go back. So we've had that epic intro. And then there's a gap. And I knew straight away that I felt that there was a hook there for the lyrics. I left the gap, and it was always my intention for the vocals to kind of do something. Da, 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 da. And I spent so long trying to think of what lyric would fit there. I think I was writing this thinking of it as a live song, and how all the music would just stop, and then you'd get that epic vocal. You know, oh, that's the doorbell. God damn it. Alright, where were we? Our time is now. So yeah, it ended up being our time is now. Our time is now. And yeah, then you've got this verse riff, which is fairly simple. And that repeats and goes into a new section, because we know that because it's blue, right? So this is effectively verse 2, kinda. I think I have like high standards when I write for Mors in terms of the structure and having maybe more parts than are necessary for most bands, but I like to have not just verse, chorus, verse, chorus. Try to do 2 different riffs for the verses. So this is kind of like verse part 2. It's a very thrashy kind of riff, and this also is kind of thrashy, and this is pretty funny actually. I'll just play this a second. So we're into this weird tapping thing, which I thought was cool, but my friends are giving me shit because I double tracked this. There was really no reason for me to double track that lead line. It was actually a complete waste of time, but it just sounded that 1% better to me to have it double tracked. So I've got them panned left and right by 30, and I'll just play one at a time. And I'll just introduce the right side now. It just adds something. But the problem is they had to be so super tight that I spent way too long trying to get that to match up. When you're tapping as fast as that, it's very hard to double track it and for it to sound like one guitar. So a lot of my friends are saying, why the hell did you bother? But I'm a perfectionist, and I felt like that 1% was necessary. It just sounds bigger. All right, and we're back at the chorus, which is of course the intro. So far, structure-wise, we've got the intro, which goes into the kind of guitar part as well. We've got verse part 1, verse part 2, and then we've got kind of an extra bit, because why not? And that's the orange. And then we've got enough there. We can go revisit the intro, which is actually now the chorus. And then, just as we did before, we've got a gap for the vocal hook, just like that. Da, 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 da. This time I've switched them around. So verse part 1 now becomes verse part 2, and verse part 2 comes first. Why? It just made the song a little bit more interesting. No other reason. It just felt right. And then that section goes into verse part 1. And then we'll go to the purple section now. So this kind of reminds me of the song Episode 666 by In Flames. There's just that bit. It's just like... I just really wanted to include something like that. And I came up with this. And yeah, I really wanted that big epic moment in the song where everything just stops and it's just like the lead guitar in the spotlight, and that's what this is. And you'll notice that this being the rhythm guitar here, this is quad tracked. I'll talk about that now. Since about 2010, I've always quad tracked my rhythm guitars entirely for albums. What does quad tracking mean? If you're not familiar, it means you record the same riff 4 times, which may sound ridiculous, but it just gives this really fat, full sound, sludgy guitar sound, because you've got 4 of the same thing going on. It hits you like a freight train. Now, I've always done that. I've done that on about 7 albums now. But I realized that that potentially is not the smartest move when you've got all of this orchestration and synths going on. You're eating up a lot of space with the guitar, and you therefore don't hear how precise the orchestra is. You lose a lot of that. So you take up a lot of real estate in the song by having 4 tracks instead of 2. Most bands, I think, they would do 1 left, 1 right. I've always done 2 left, 2 right. On this album, it was the first time that I basically just went, no, with this, we're going to leave more room for the synths and orchestra. And there's another reason for it also. We're going to just do 2 guitars. The reason being that everything sounds clearer when you're playing those really intricate fast riffs. It's very hard, very time consuming to quad track those fast intricate riffs, and it doesn't always sound better. In fact, a lot of times it sounds very robotic because of the way you had to approach recording it, and it sounds worse. The other thing is, if you ever put any tiny inflection or pick attack or half or quarter harmonic, pinch harmonic on anything, or you do a little bit of a vibrato on the riffs, that's great if you've got 1 hard left and 1 hard right. They won't fight with each other. Once you introduce 2 more layers and you've got to have all 4 exactly the same, you can't do any of that fun stuff. You can't really just bend a note a little bit. You can't put your character into the playing as much as if you just do 2 tracks. Then you can get away with it. You can put a little swivel on it. You can put a little half pinch on it, and you get away with it. Once you do 4 and you have 4 Andy Gillions playing with feeling, they kind of clash. It's too much. It's like, well, he's trying to do this, he's trying to do that. You're trying to convey how you felt that day with that bend, and you're trying to swivel a little on that note, and it's a mess, right? So if you just go back to the left and the right and you play more with feeling, I think it was more about, on this album, to introduce more feeling in the guitar playing in the rhythms, because the general consensus, unfortunately, with metal a lot of the time is just track like a robot for rhythm guitar and then add feeling with the lead guitar. And I wanted to add more feeling with the rhythm guitar this time around, and also leave room for the strings. So I just double tracked this album for the most part. And you'll see at times, like here and on the last notes, I've employed the quad track. Now, this is the other perk of only doing 2 tracks of rhythm guitar, is when you do add another 2 and you quad track it, it explodes. You give it way more emphasis. So rather than the whole album being quad tracked, you have way more feeling, more room for the strings, and when you want it to go big on a big chordy section, I wouldn't usually do it for riffs. sub drop there. We've got the same situation with the sub and the cool zero slam giant long decay sound effect that I made apparently. Okay, so pretty stripped back. The orchestra's pretty much gone. All the orchestra kind of lives up at the top of the screen here. And as you can see for these sections, it's quite stripped back. And we go into the purpley pink sections, which are my favorite because it means there's lots of lead guitar playing. And you'll see here that I then double that for a harmony. Some people swear by doing, you play that same bit there, that same block, and you do a left and a right around that. So that's playing in the center, but I'd always repeat this line. So I'd play it again there, and then this would be the third above on the right. So you've got the main line down the center, and when it repeats, that line becomes the left side, and then the third above, for example, would be on the right. That's the way I do it. You may have a different way of approaching it. There's no wrong or right. This is just what I do. And I'll let you in on what this sounds like without the backing. Cool. And crazy solo. There's really nothing to be said about that other than I think I had a lot of caffeine that day. And then the solo drops back out into this purple section again. This time it's dropping out back into the intro, and we get to relive that awesomeness again. Build it up again. Exactly the same way as before. Then we play the riff again. And that vocal hook comes back here. We end on a big bang. And that's basically the song. All right, thanks guys. That's it for this song. If you've got any questions about the arrangement or the composition, please comment below. I'll do my best to answer any of the questions you have about this. And I'm very proud of the album. Please check it out if you can. And let's keep this video series going, and we can have a look at some of the other songs too. Inside the product, I might call it Inside the Production. Inside the Session, maybe. Inside the Production. Behind the Music. I'll think of a title there. I'll think of a snappy title, all right? Cheers. All the best. Thanks. Bye. That's a weird way to sign that off.